And that was, if you go back in the archives, this is Lee's, I'm taking Lee's thunder now. I don't know what episode it was, but Podderbox, you'll find it on the audio. Go to inspirationnation.org.uk and you'll be talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine there. So
that's the one.
For that.
And I'm going to say, Inspiration Nation, hello, we are here. Okay. Joe is already keeping TikTok amused. Just follow us there. And we are live now on YouTube and, of course, across all podcast platforms. And we're shaking up this week. We're trying something new. We're going to be giving out a quote every week, and we're going to talk about that quote. This is our new model for the podcast, if you like. And I'm up first. So I'm going to give you a quote. In fact, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to give you a quote. So, if I was to ask either of you, who is the greatest boxer of all time, who would you say? No thinking, just answer.
Muhammed Ali.
Grifster?
Floyd Mayweather.
Okay. Joe gave the right answer for the context of the podcast. So, 50% hit rate. So, my quote is, I am the greatest, from Muhammad Ali. And the reason I want to talk about this quote isn't because I believe... In fact, I know not very much about boxing whatsoever. I was going to swear there, but I'm not swearing. As you know, I'm a fan of the much more competitive sporting world of professional wrestling than I am boxing. But I don't know a lot about boxing. I do know Muhammad Ali. He's in culture. I do know the quote, I am the greatest. And I do know that a lot of people would say, 50% hit rate here, that Muhammad Ali is the greatest boxer of time. Even Muhammad Ali, from things I've read, didn't really think it's great. In fact, he first said this all the way back in 1964, when Joe was 30 years old. When he was 22 years old, only 22, hadn't won a world title, definitely was not the greatest, but he spoke it into existence. He said it so often that he believed it and people believed it, and it's entered the zeitgeist. It's transcended boxing. I know about it, and I could probably name 5 boxers, and one of them would be Frank Bruno. I'm so out of date. But this is, in terms of picking a quote, I think this is one of, this is top 10 all time, I think, of a quote and its ramifications. But my angle on this is, I suppose it's twofold. One is affirmations. So he was telling himself he's the greatest. He was telling everyone else, but it was also telling himself. It's the whole look in the mirror thing, tell yourself you like yourself type of thing. But he then spoke it into existence, because the more he said it, the more people heard it, the more people repeated it, and people started to believe it. And I'm nicking this isn't a quote, but this phrase. I heard someone talking about this, which is what gave me the inspiration to kind of jump this one up my list. I said it's the same. It's what politicians do. They will keep telling you the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until you believe it, or until enough people believe it that it becomes fact. And that's why I like that quote. I think it's got so many angles to it, and it's such a powerful tool for so many reasons. Right, over to you. Also, this, for everyone out there in listener land, we've just, mostly due to me, 100% due to me and my all over the place scheduling, we've just gone in, we've hit record and we're going. So we've not even done a little preamble. So can I just say hello, Jose, and Ryan, who is away from work and is multitasking right now as we talk. I'm very pleased to see you, because I didn't think we'd see you today. So
I agree.
Hey guys,
it's great to see you.
Right, you look very professional as well. I like this. I've never seen you look so professional.
He looks very professional.
Does my camera move for you? Look.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you're fancy as
clever.
well. Fancy.
I bought an iPad. I bought an iPad before I came out here, and for those of you that are listening, it's not going to make any difference to you, but the camera moves with my face.
It's really cool. I like it.
That is so cool. Honestly, that is so cool. I love that.
Yeah, long time listeners of the podcast will know that I visited South Africa for work in March, and I'm back for a few weeks.
Can't keep a good Griffey down. He's back out there again.
Totally.
Jet setting.
That's it.
But working hard.
Yeah, working really hard. Yeah.
Trying to make sure it goes well, because otherwise I don't want people to think it was a massive waste of time and a waste of money.
Yeah,
also,
you do put in the extra graft. You do put in the extra graft, Ryan. When you said to stuff. So
on the on-air production notes, for a phrase that's become very common in the office world of working from home, I've got a hard stop at 6 o'clock, guys. So you've got 22 minutes to get all your thoughts in.
Okay.
Less than that now, in fact. So go. I am the greatest, Muhammad Ali. What do you think?
Ryan, are you going to go?
I never
No,
seen
you
Joe
go
be
if you
so
wanna go,
cautious.
Joe.
Okay, so for me, this is it's okay. I think we've got to be careful with this though. This is my caveat, and this is what came to mind. I think you can speak affirmations,
Yes,
but you can delude yourself too. I think
100%.
we've got to be careful
That's a
because
really
you
good
can
thought. Yeah,
speak it. You can speak it, but you've got to follow through with actions to do that. I mean, you know, Muhammad Ali did not like to say I'm the greatest and just sat back on his sofa and go I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. And this is one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about because there's a book called The Secret. I read it and it says all you got to do is think and imagine you're doing this thing and da 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 da. But there's a massive piece missing from it. You've got to actually do some work. You've got to put in the work. But I think what you're saying, Lee, what I really liked about this was what you're saying is you speak the affirmation, but what you do is you then it encourages you to do the actions that are necessary for that to become a reality, right? It's the work, but it's the work when people aren't looking. It's the work when people aren't watching. It's where Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay, as you were formerly known, and Ryan, you're the sports guru here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You know, putting in the work, putting in the training, and he trained super hard. I mean, crazily hard to get to where he wanted to be. So it doesn't just come about by. Of course, he had some natural talent as well, but you know, you still got to harness that natural talent. Just because you've got a almost like a gift for boxing, doesn't necessarily going to be the best because you still have to harness that gift. And he did by working super hard, putting himself out there, like you talked about. I've been editing that episode, by the way, putting yourself out there. I really love that episode, by the way. You two did it on your own. I loved it. By putting yourself out there, taking risks, and really putting yourself on the line, which you do in boxing. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be fit. You've got to be prepared to take the hits. So I'd just be a caveat around that yes, you can speak affirmations, but you've got to have a plan to start to make that a reality. And that means having a small action steps. It could be that, you know, if you want to be the greatest at something, then you've got to start taking a few steps, right? And I think, Ryan, you mentioned this before, actually, that, you know, there can only be a certain amount of percentage that can be the greatest at something, right? But it doesn't mean you can't try. So, you know, but there is a very small percentage of there's that whole against the wind type thing where you're pushing against things. But that's how great people win because the odds are stacked against them. And yeah, I just love that quote. I am the greatest, but you've got to back that up, haven't you? And he backed it up for sure. Yeah, that's my view anyway. But any views on that?
I think that's a good point about the. I'm playing my microphone. Can you hear me all right again, by the way?
I can, yeah.
You good?
You talking about the delusion bit?
Good.
Lee?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a good point. And I've seen this where you see people and you do think, how do you have that view of yourself? And everyone else has this view of yourself. So you do have that risk because you're right. You do have to back it up. And obviously, Ali was in the boxing world and he was at a very high level. He kind of then, I think he did add a layer of mystique to it though that came in because of what he said and how he said it and how you believe it. And I think at that highest level, you know, the whole you can be a success, you do well. Let's think less cheesy than that. But I do think there is something in the messages you say to yourself, both positive and negative, because I think you can tear yourself down with self-doubt if you say, you know, you're not as good as that person, you don't look as good as they do, you're not as smart as them, you're not doing as well as that, you're not where you should be on plan. So there's a whole negative affirmation side to it as well. And I think the positive affirmation is such a strong tool for building that self-belief. But you're right, it's like everything. Everyone, you can use your powers for good or you can use them for evil. And there's that risk that you just convince yourself you're amazing, but there's no goal attached to it. So there's no delivery. There's nothing that comes with it. And that's where those problems can really come in.
Well, I like that because if you say give me the greatest, what are you going to be the greatest at? And what's the next milestone for you to hit to become that? So yeah, I really love that. Anyway,
sometimes I have to worry what I'm not going to be the greatest at. It's such a challenge.
Oh, Lee, I love the modesty right there.
That's if anything, I think my greatest strength is my modesty.
I love it.
It's hard. It's hard when you're so good at so many things. To be this modest is a real strength.
I see Ryan smiling away there. It's brilliant. This is great. Go on, Ryan. Go on, jump in. I know you want to jump in. Go on.
I think there's a swearing word running through Ryan's head as he thinks about me right now.
The quote is an interesting one because if he hadn't have been the best of all time, then he would have been a joke. He would have been run amok. And, you know, he genuinely believed in his ability to become the best and, you know, he proved that. he went out and he did that. So, you can only give credit where it's due, I guess. But I think for the Joe, you alluded to it, and I've said it before. The vast majority of people will say that and not achieve it. And there would have been people at the time when he first said it that was like, yeah, whatever. And I know that he came up in boxing around a really strong racism time in America, and he had to kind of be outlandish to be seen, I think, and heard. So that it might have been that was part of the motivation to say something like that. But people, if somebody was to come into our workplace now, or your workplace now, or wherever, and say, they could be an internal mover, or they could be a long time serving member, and they could say, I'm the best at X, I'm the best at Y. You just roll your eyes and go, oh, it's somebody else that's cocksure and arrogant, doesn't really know the world. But it's about how you kind of back it up as well. And if you lead that perception of yourself to be the best, and you do deliver for the most part, and you push that kind of thing through, then people will kind of let it go and be like, yeah, he's all right, he does a good job, I guess. But if you're not, then you only make a fool of yourself. And I spent a long time over the years being told I had an overinflated ego and was perhaps slightly arrogant. So, I've learned this life rule or life lesson, I guess. I wouldn't say I'm any less arrogant now. I just hide it better.
I was going to say you can probably take the word perhaps out of that sentence earlier.
Do you know what though? I just want to say, can I just say, I know you said that, and I know when you do need a level of confidence, don't you? And we talked about arrogance, but actually, to tell the truth though, Ryan, do you know what I just want to say? Thanks for really being honest about, that you had that lesson to be learned, because that's a really brave thing to admit, isn't it? Because we all want to be good at something. We do want to be great, don't we? We would, Is that intrinsic?
I still probably have the biggest ego in most of the rooms. But again, I hide it.
At least you admit it.
But I do my best to hide it. Yeah. But I do my best to hide it, because it isn't who I am to be like that, I guess. Not anymore anyway. But yeah. I just try and be a more representative person, or at least a more likable person, and then when I do something right, then people build that ego for you, don't they? Nothing's better than being confident in something and having somebody else tell you that you're good at it. If you're a really good cook and you think you're a really good cook, that's fine, but you get the real validation when you actually cook for somebody else and they're like, "Cool, you're good at that."
Yeah, I love that, Ryan, actually. Because you've actually sparked another thought, and jump in, Lee, or Ryan, when you think, but there's a Stoicism quote, and I love Stoicism. We've got into the last couple of years, we sort of talk about on the podcast, but it's all about deeds, not words. Deeds, not words. Like actions, not words. Like, if you are the greatest, well, prove it then. Like just do it. Just like Ryan said, if you are the greatest, other people will be your voice box, the voice for you. You won't need to say it, because people will just talk about it because you are great at what you do. And I think, oh my God, I'm just getting chills talking about that. That is something that really resonates with me, Ryan, when you said that, because there's another book I read called The Four Agreements, and I don't know if anyone's read it, so thank you so much in the TikTok, because I've got Blue saying, defending some of the stuff in there, which is great. But in The Four Agreements, it talks about that words are spells, like, so if you speak them, then that actually does have some sort of effect. But you've really, not only have you, like, if you say I'm the greatest, and you wholeheartedly believe it, and you put the actions in place to fulfill it, then you're more likely to do it. But if you just say the words, but there's no real actions, or like Ryan says, there's nothing behind it to back it up, then you're just deluding yourself. And so the Four Agreements talks about that. And again, Ryan talked about another thing which really I found really resonated with me, is that, if someone goes into it, I'm the greatest, people are gonna judge straight away. And we talked about, we don't want to judge, right? So, if someone said that in the room, I'd want to try and say, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Go show me then. I would love to see some evidence of this greatness. But because there could be someone who says I'm going to, and they are good, they're absolutely great. So I suppose there's a little bit of, if someone says it, not an instant roll my eyes, oh, here we go, but actually, okay, well, you say you're going to be the greatest, well, let's see it then. Let's see what this is. Because what I wouldn't want to do is undermine someone who, I suppose, who has that aspiration. No, again, I say when I coach people, and they say to you they want to achieve this goal, I always talk, when I train coaching out, I say don't judge that. If someone says they want to do X, then run with it. All you got to do as a coach is get them to sense check it and say what are the actions they're putting in place to do that. So it really links lovely into that type of, you want to be the greatest. Well, okay, well, scale of 1 to 10, you want to achieve it by X. How confident are you, right? If it's a 5, then you're not really confident. What needs to happen? What have you done? What haven't you done? If it's an 8, what have you done? What can you do differently to get it to a 10, right? So those are the sorts of questions that I would ask if I was coaching. I would say that they said they wouldn't do the greatest at something. We need to sense check that, and there needs to be some sort, not me judging, but they would need to look at it themselves so there's no self-delusion. Anyway, that's my piece on this.
I like that. No, that's good, Joe. For a summing up then, because I threw this out here to get the views on it, because I definitely think there's something in it. Again, it's not my specialist subject, but if you look online, I've read some articles over the last week. There's a lot of articles about, is he really the greatest? And actually a whole compelling case as to why he's not. There's people obviously make the case that he is. The fact that he said it is the catalyst for those conversations. And it's without a shadow of a doubt, whether it's true or whether it's not, himself anointing himself and making that his catchphrase and living that is definitely what put it out there. So I definitely think there's something in it. There is 100% something in positive affirmations, whether it's for yourself or with other people. But then I think the important bit, like I said, if he never actually tried to be a boxer, or in fact he wasn't already at a high level when he put himself out there, it's, was he telling himself behind the scenes and that's what spurred him on to get where he got to, or was he there and that's what put it over? But I definitely think, the training, the discipline, the hard work, but I think the affirmation is almost like that's the cherry on top, that whether you agree or not, he's always in that conversation. And I think that self-belief, that affirmation, that putting it out there is part of it. But like you said, it's part of it. It's a piece of the recipe, and it's probably 5% rather than 95%. And that's actually leading us into takeaways, Joe. That's my takeaway is, yes, it's important, but it's one ingredient in that success toolbox.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Which leads us in, as I'm keeping on time. It's give us some takeaways. I'm doing some shilling and we're out of here. It's a short one, but thank you everyone for joining us. Joe, what have you got?
My takeaway is spells are words. So if you commit to the I am the greatest, then what are the actions to become the greatest, right? So it's all about deeds, not words. But like you say, it's 5%.
And thank you, Ryan, from you.
My takeaway would be that you need to be careful that you can cache the words from the checks your mouth writes.
Yes. That's a good one. I like how you tie that in with your earlier comments on yourself as well. That feels like that's one that's at the forefront of your mind now. Thank you for that. Appreciate both of you, everyone being with us. Again, people, we've been live on YouTube and TikTok. Just search Jose Noya-Inspiration, stick it in your Google machine. We're on Twitter at ListenToIN. I did that back to front. And inspirationnation.org.uk, merchandise, Joe's newsletter, full archive, yada, 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 all that jazz. Massive interaction on TikTok today, by the way. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone.
7.5k likes, Lee.
Fantastic. Look at those numbers. Can't lie with numbers. Well, you can lie with numbers, but we like these numbers, so we're going to stick with them and say they're true. And I'll count us down. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation.
Catch you guys later.
Guys later.
Right. See you later, TikTok.